a sacred text filled with fantastic tales of an awesome supernatural force. But what if that force wasn't God? What if it was a UFO? In Ezekiel, what was that gleaming wheel within a wheel that descended on the prophet? In the Sodom and Gomorrah of Genesis, where did the devastating fire and brimstone come from? In Exodus, what was that presence in the sky that led Moses through the desert? Were these the actions of God? Or might these mysterious forces in the skies have been UFOs in the Bible? Throughout the Bible, mysterious aerial phenomena appear and alter the course of human history. To religious scholars, these stories are an infallible record of God's presence and godly events. But some modern-day researchers offer a different theory. Perhaps these stories really describe alien visitations.
Is it possible that extraterrestrials have been involved in human history for thousands of years? And if so, did they have contact with the biblical people? And as you look in the Bible, there are many reports of UFOs that contact biblical people. A chariot of fire that abducts Elijah and takes him off into the sky.
Elijah was one of the most revered Jewish prophets of his day. According to ufologists, the biblical account of his encounter with chariots of fire is a detailed description of what might be termed a UFO. This encounter took place as Elijah traveled along the Jordan River, accompanied by his successor, Elisha. Elijah knew his life was in danger because he had upset many powerful religious figures.
Elijah called out for God to help him. There was a young man with him, Elisha, and he didn't see it. But suddenly there were a number of chariots of fire around him.
Behold, a chariot of fire and horses of fire separated the two of them. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven.
In the Old Testament, Elisha tells a story about being caught up or swept away by a chariot of fire, or a conveyance that was glowing brightly hot.
According to this passage, Elijah was spirited up into the sky, never to be seen again by mortal man.
The concept of Elijah being taken up into a chariot of fire is an abduction.
Certainly modern UFOs are reported to take humans on board and take them away. So I think we've got in modern UFO reports something that could have functioned very well to carry Elijah into the sky.
If we were to take what Elisha was describing and compare it to events of people being taken aboard unidentified flying objects or flying saucers, it may very well be the same type of event occurring in those days compared to what they could compare it to.
What we think of as a chariot and what we think of as a flying saucer may seem worlds apart. But some contend that perhaps they aren't so different after all.
Chariots is actually a word that means some form of conveyance, and back in those days, the closest thing they could compare these moving objects to was a chariot. So therefore, they were a conveyance that was glowing or bright or had a fiery appearance. And that was probably the closest association they could make to these conveyances in the sky.
Some speculate that the traditional interpretation of biblical passages is hampered, not only by the ancients' lack of technical references, but also by inaccuracies in the Bible's translation into English by the court of King James, which was completed in 1611.
The English that was used in the court of England in the 17th century was different than the English that was used by the common people, and for a specific purpose. Because the court of England wanted to keep themselves separated from the commoners.
To better understand the original meaning of biblical texts, researchers refer to Strong's Exhaustive Concordance. This book, completed in 1890, is an alphabetical index of every word used in the Bible, listing each occurrence of that word and the context in which it is used. By doing this, some researchers believe they have discovered another connection between Elijah's story and UFOs. In the King James Version, Elijah tells of being whisked up into heaven. But some now believe that perhaps he wasn't talking about the godly realm.
When it comes to the word heaven, in the court of King James, the word heaven literally meant sky. So in the hundreds of places in the Bible that heaven is used, it actually means sky. It is never described as a place that you go to for a particular reward.
Biblical stories about mysterious events in the sky may not be the only ancient sources hinting at UFOs.
As far as the religious beliefs concerning UFOs, they're found throughout every culture. If you go into the most ancient of texts, the old Sumerian texts, they're in there. They're painted on Egyptian walls in ancient tombs. The yogis and lamas in the Eastern thought call them Vimanas, and they call them the chariots of the gods.
Thousands of years ago, in an amazing feat of precision, the Nazca people of Peru created perfectly straight lines stretching across their landscape. A plane 37 miles long and a mile wide. Some ufologists wondered whether the design, resembling a modern airport, was used as a runway for alien spaceships. The lines intersect, forming enormous geometric shapes, and include drawings of insects, mammals, and a mysterious humanoid being, which some say resembles a man in a spacesuit.
You can only see them from the sky, and so you have to wonder if these lines weren't drawn to impress beings that were flying in the skies, and therefore the cultures that drew these were trying to at least get the attention of the sky people that they knew were there.
Other ancient civilizations also believed that they were visited by extraterrestrial beings. Kukulkan, a patron god of the Mayans, is said to have descended from the sky and bestowed upon them complex technological and mathematical principles.
One of the ways we can show this is a distinct possibility is by the advanced mathematical capabilities of the Mayans. For instance, a Dresden Codex, where they're showing very advanced astronomical tables where they can chart the solar eclipses and the lunar eclipses.
When you talk about the Mayans receiving knowledge from ancient gods who came from the sky, their mathematics, their astronomy, I believe that's entirely rooted in fact. because that same story is echoed everywhere. Native Americans, South American Indians, China, all the Orient, India. That story, or some version of it, that gods came from the sky and gave technology to mankind.
Stories repeating over time and across cultures. Eerily similar themes that appear again and again, raising new questions.